Hello, welcome back to the Breaking News Update. My name is Jimmy Boyd, and you are watching Boyd News. I want to thank you so much for tuning in today. I'm back with another update coming out from the war between Russia and Ukraine. I've got a ton of big news to share with all of you today. So today's date is May 15th, 2025, and it's Thursday. We've got a lot of news to cover in this war, and today's a very big day as Ukrainian and Russian delegations are set to meet in Turkey. They have already arrived today. We also have this picture coming out from Ankara today, the capital of Turkey. We have Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky that has met with the Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan. That's him in the photo on the right side. So we're going to talk more about this meeting today between Russia and Ukraine and Turkey, all the top headlines coming out, information from the Ukrainian side and Russian side. Also, today is a very big day for me because it's my birthday today. I've turned 34, and I just want to say thank you to all of you out there who are here watching my videos every single day and supporting me. If you choose that you do want to move a little bit further and support me in another way, I am also on Buy Me a Coffee. We also have Patreon as well. All the links are in the description of this video if you choose to support me in any way that you want. We also have a super thanks option. If you want to send me a little tip on this video, you can click the little thanks button below the video. And also, if you want to, you can join as a member on the channel. So I want to thank you guys so much for tuning in, guys. Let's jump in to our first updates here on your screen. Putin skips Ukraine negotiations in Turkey, sends low-tier delegation. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky slammed Russia for sending a decorative delegation as he touched down in Ankara for a meeting with his Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan. Okay, so again, there's that photo of them meeting today. So yeah, Vladimir Zelensky not happy with Putin not showing up, but I think most of us expected that Vladimir Putin was not going to be there. And on top of that, he sent a very low-tier delegation. I mean, even Sergei Lavrov and Yuri Ushakov, who we were expecting to be showing up, did not even arrive. You're going to hear a lot of names you probably never even heard of before because they are very low-tier delegation that is showing up to represent Russia. So does that mean that Russia's not serious? You guys can let me know what you think. I mean, that's the signal that I'm receiving from the Russian side. They're not serious about ending this war once again, which I've said so many times. And on top of that, we continuously hear that Russia's preparing another offensive. I've got information today that looks like that thing is already underway right now. So let's go ahead and jump into this. We're going to start off over here on X with Jurgen Nodit. Kremlin dwarf Putin approved the composition of the Russian delegation for negotiations with Ukraine. So these are the people showing up to represent Russia. Badinsky VR, who is the assistant to the president of the Russian Federation, head of the delegation. We have Galuzin M.U. I'm not sure how to pronounce that, but it says Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs of Russia. Kostyukov I.O. Head of the main directorate of the General Staff of the Russian Armed Forces. Fomin A.V. Deputy head of the Ministry of Defense of the Russian Federation. Also, there's the Kremlin's caretaker and his niece, who is currently on a school holiday. The second-rate delegation proves once again that Putin has no interest in real peace negotiations. Putin will not participate. Trump, by the way, will not participate either. Yeah, Donald Trump's not going to be there. Also, he said he would not show up unless Putin was going to be there. So because Putin is not going to be there, we will not see Trump. So again, I don't think we're going to see any kind of close end to this war anytime soon. I think this thing's going to drag on for a while, and I think these talks are probably going to go nowhere. I think there will be some discussion of maybe a ceasefire, but we'll see if Ukraine and Russia can even agree to that. So we'll move on to another update now. For no reports, Ukraine's delegation in Turkey reportedly includes President Zelensky, Foreign Minister Sibia, Chief of General Staff Natov, if I'm saying that right, SBU head Malyuk, Defense Minister Umarov, and head of the presidential office Yermak, a high-level presence at the talks. Russia represented by junior officials. Yeah, so Ukraine sending all their top heads out of their government, but Russia just sending very low-tier delegation. Take a look at this video. All All right, so a video coming out like this should show the world that Ukraine is very serious about ending this war, securing a ceasefire, and pushing towards peace. And then with Russia sending a low tier delegation, that clearly shows that the Russians are not serious about ending this, at least in my opinion. You guys can let me know what you think. Now, from Vladimir Zelensky. First and foremost, I want to thank President Erdogan for organizing the opportunity for direct negotiations. That was exactly the signal we had received. The Ukrainian side confirmed its readiness, and today we are here in the capital in Ankara. Ukraine is represented by a top level delegation, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, my office, the military, and representatives of all our intelligence agencies ready to make any decisions that could lead to a long awaited just peace. We will begin with a meeting with President Erdogan and with the entire Turkish delegation. We are in contact with the U.S. side. I believe they will be present in Turkey at a high level as well. I have not yet received official confirmation regarding the Russian level of representation, but from what we can observe, it appears theatrical. We will decide on our next steps after the conversation with President Erdogan. We will have several hours for an important discussion and very important decisions. It is essential to understand the level of the Russian delegation, what mandate they hold, and whether they are authorized to make any decisions at all, because we all know who actually makes the decisions in Russia, and he's talking about Vladimir Putin. So we've got a 47-second clip here of Vladimir Zelensky arriving in Turkey today, guys. Go ahead and take a look at this. All right, so just by having Vladimir Zelensky show up today, that's obviously a major statement coming out from Ukraine that they are committed to peace. They're serious about this. We know that the president needs to be there to make a lot of these serious decisions, right? That's why Zelensky's calling on Vladimir Putin to arrive there as well, so they could discuss an end to this war. But again, clearly Putin is not going to be there as far as we know. Now from next to Vladimir Zelensky at a press conference in Ankara. If Putin is ready for negotiations, let's meet. We can't chase him around the world. Right now, Russia is clearly showing that it does not want to end the war. Trump is sending Rubio, Turkey's foreign minister, is here, and Sibia, Ukraine's foreign minister, is here. Where are the appropriate people from Russia? This is disrespectful both to the U.S. and to Turkey. Zelensky added that Russia is showing personal disrespect. No confirmed meeting time, no agenda, no high-level delegation. I'm not even saying they don't respect us. That's already obvious, okay? So Zelensky was allegedly coming out and saying that this was a sham delegation, that there was a mock-up, that it's basically a joke is kind of what he's saying, that, Russia's sending this low-tier delegation just clearly shows they're not serious and committed to peace and ending this war. Now, here's a response from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs from Russia. From Max 24, Zelensky had no right to call the level of the Russian delegation a mock-up. These are honored people, professionals, and he is a clown, a loser, and a person with an unknown education. Yep, that came out from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and I believe that could have been Sergei Lavrov that was stating that, because he was in an interview today apparently talking about Zelensky and responding to his comments in regards to calling the Russian delegation a sham. But I believe Maria Zakharova, the spokeswoman for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, was also stating something similar like that. Now, here's a statement directly from Lavrov. Max 24, Russian Foreign Minister Lavrov calls Zelensky a pathetic person over his demands for Putin to be president in Istanbul. Okay, so he's also calling out to Vladimir Zelensky, calling him pathetic for demanding Vladimir Putin be there at these talks. I mean, that seems reasonable to me. If Zelensky's going to be there, why not just send Russian President Vladimir Putin over there? I mean, at the end of the day, this is between them two that need to end this war, and we know that Russia makes all the decisions, or excuse me, Vladimir Putin makes all the decisions. So it makes sense that he would be there. And how much can this Russian delegation agree to, and do they have authorization to allow certain things to happen or anything like that? I mean, if it's such a low-tier delegation, I would expect they can't really achieve much. So now from NOAA reports, Kremlin spokesman Peskov stated that Putin has defined Russia's position for the negotiations in Istanbul based on briefings held the day before. However, there are no plans for a meeting between Putin and Trump, and the topic hasn't been discussed in any concrete terms. Peskov also confirmed that Putin has no plans to visit Istanbul in the coming days. The Russian delegation is already in place and waiting for their Ukrainian counterparts. Okay, so that was a statement coming out from Peskov today. So yeah, apparently Putin and Trump are not planning to meet anytime soon as well. And Trump was stating today also that he needs to meet with Putin in order to end this war. So it's like very clear that, you know, if Trump and Putin are not going to be there today, we're not going to see an end to this war. Not even close is what I'm thinking. Now from Jurgen Nada, Zelensky to Putin, I am here. This was the message to from the president of Ukraine delivered to the Russian dictator at Ankara airport. So you're going to see Zelensky walking over here. Here he is right here. And a reporter's going to shout out, hey, Zelensky, what's your message to Putin? And he says, I'm here. Take a look at this.
President Zelensky, Sky News, do you have a message for Vladimir Putin?
I'm here. I think this is very clear message. All the best. Thank you very much.
Yeah, we'll go ahead and pause it there. That's pretty much the end of this video. But if you heard him there, the reporter asked him, you know, what's your message to Vladimir Putin? He said, I'm here. I'm sure that statement is very clear. Okay, so he's calling out Russian President Vladimir Putin and saying, hey, why are you not here? I've shown up. Obviously very disappointed that he's not going to be able to meet Putin to try to negotiate an end to this war. So very frustrating for Zelensky. Now from Max 24, the meeting of delegations will take place either this evening or tomorrow, says Zelensky. Russia has begun its offensive action in all directions, says Zelensky again. There are no arguments not to agree on a ceasefire. This would be the result of my meeting with Putin. Okay, so these were some of the statements coming out from Zelensky today. So if you notice here, he is mentioning that the Russians are launching offensive actions. Okay, we've been reporting that for the last couple days. And apparently it has already begun as of today. The Russians are already starting to attack again at the same time while negotiations are underway. So we should be hearing either today, if not today, tomorrow, regarding the meeting of delegations between Ukraine and Russia when they try to discuss any type of outcome in this war and whether they're going to secure a ceasefire or anything like that. That information should be coming out either later today or by tomorrow, and I'll update you guys as soon as I can. Now, for more translated, the ball is clearly in the Russians' court right now. The Russians are sending a low-level delegation, are not taking advantage of the opportunity, NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte says. So this is Mark Rutte today. He was also in Turkey, but in a different city of Antalya, holding a NATO meeting, and also U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio was there as well. Take a look at this.
The ball now is clearly in Russia's court. The Russians are sending a low-level delegation now and not taking up the opportunity President Zelensky has been providing. He said, I'm willing to sit with Putin. As soon as a ceasefire is there, we are willing to negotiate a peace deal. So Ukraine is clearly ready to play ball. But that ball is now in the Russian court. The ball now is clearly...
Okay, so clearly what we see here is the Russians giving a big backhand to the Ukrainians, to Europe, and also to Trump, and just mocking Europe in general and just letting everybody know, hey, we're not serious about ending this war is kind of what I'm seeing here. And this is kind of Mark Rutte's response to that, okay? So now moving on to another update from More Translated. A meeting of the foreign ministers of Ukraine, France, Germany, and Poland has begun in Turkey, okay? So even some foreign ministers of major countries in Europe that support Ukraine, as you can see right here, also holding a meeting today to discuss the outcome of this war. So we also had foreign ministers holding a brief meeting there as well. Now for Max 24 again, Zelensky will meet with Erdogan in Ankara, and only then he will decide on further steps regarding negotiations with Russia, according to AFP. At the talks in Istanbul, the Ukrainian delegation is ready to discuss the issue of a 30-day ceasefire. Okay, so we did have Zelensky meeting with Erdogan today, as I mentioned. After that, that's when Zelensky was going to decide what's going to happen, who's going to be representing Ukraine in this delegation to meet with the Russians either later today or tomorrow. So reportedly what they're going to be discussing is a 30-day ceasefire first, okay? So here's a picture coming out from Max 24. Also, Ukrainian and Turkish delegations in Ankara. So this was the meeting when Zelensky met with Turkish President Erdogan. Here you can see them sitting right here in these chairs. We've got the Turkish delegation here and also the Ukrainian delegation meeting with him as well. And now from a Ukrainian Review, Turkish presidency on Zelensky meeting, President Erdogan emphasized that the current stage of the Russia-Ukraine conflict requires a resolution through direct negotiations and that reaching a minimum common ground is critical to preventing further loss of life. Erdogan also noted that a historic opportunity has emerged to initiate negotiations, expressing strong support for talks at both the technical and leadership levels. He reiterated that Turkey values keeping dialogue channels open between Ukraine and Russia for the rapid establishment of peace and stands ready to host both leaders when they are prepared to meet. Okay, so just think about this, okay? Russia was the first people to come out and say, "Hey, let's go ahead and hold some negotiations and talks in Turkey." Putin doesn't even show up, but Zelensky shows up and actually pays his respects to the president, meets Recep Tayyip Erdogan here, as you can see in the photo, in the capital of Ankara to show his respect to Turkey for allowing them to host these negotiations. And Putin didn't even show up. Isn't that pretty crazy to think about? But, clearly we can see here that the Ukrainians are serious about ending this war and Russia is not. Now, from NOAA reports, breaking, the meeting between Russian and Ukrainian delegations has reportedly started in Istanbul, reports TRT Haber. Okay, so I can't completely confirm this because there's some information today that allegedly the Russians have been passing around information that there's a start to these talks in Istanbul already, but as far as I know, they haven't begun. There's some reports stating that and then some not. I mean, take a look at this from Max 24. Russia spreading false claims about peace talks starting in Turkey at 10 a.m. Moscow time. No such meeting was scheduled. So that kind of relates to what Zelensky was saying, that the Russians had no time frame. They haven't had any agenda, schedule set up. They don't even know when they're going to be meeting with Ukraine. But according to Volodymyr Zelensky, he's stating that later today, Russia and Ukraine should be meeting with their delegations to try to talk about ending this war. And the peace talks apparently have not been held yet between Russia and Ukraine. So kind of crazy news there. Now from next to just in, Zelensky has confirmed that he will send a delegation to Istanbul for negotiations with Russia, but will not take part in the negotiations himself. He stated that the decision was made out of respect for Trump and Erdogan and as an effort to achieve at least the first step toward ending the war. The announcement came during a press conference held at the Ukrainian embassy in Ankara. The Ukrainian delegation will be led by Defense Minister Rustem Umerov. Okay, so Rustem Umerov, the defense minister, is going to be leading the delegation in these talks with Russia. And it looks like what they're mainly going to be talking about first is a 30-day ceasefire to try to end this war. And it looks like they won't be talking about much else other than that. We'll see if they can even secure a 30-day ceasefire. Now for Military News UA, the goal of direct contacts with Ukraine is to establish long-term peace by eliminating the root causes of the war. Our delegation has all the competencies. Representative of the delegation from the Russian Federation, Medinsky, said the Russian delegation views the negotiations in Istanbul as a continuation of the peace process interrupted in 2022. Okay, so this was a statement coming out from the head of the delegation on the Russian side. This is Medinsky here. So this was, just a statement he was making here that, again, the Russians keep saying this, eliminating the root causes of the war, that, apparently they are somewhat committed to trying to end this, but again, they state these kind of things, but then their actions show otherwise, that they're not serious about ending this. So statement coming out from the Russian side today. Also, here's another one from the Ukrainian Review. Russia does not want to cease fire until a broader strategy is agreed. Apparently, Medinsky also said that today, okay? That was according to Reuters reporting that Russia does not want a ceasefire until a broader strategy is agreed to. Now, you guys can let me know what you think that strategy might be, but we know that a lot of the Russian demands lately have been pretty insane demands. In order to achieve a ceasefire, Russia wants things like take over the 4 territories in Ukraine that they're fighting for. That includes Luhansk, Donetsk region, Zaporizhzhia region, also Kherson regions. They want Ukraine to pull back from the front line and give up those territories that the Russians are fighting for right now, and just several other things like calling on Volodymyr Zelensky to step down and get replaced by a different leader. So many different things that Ukraine will never agree to. So that's probably what he's talking about, but you guys can let me know. Now from Mira of Kiev, and she says, what? So here's a little statement here. I want you guys to see this. When asked by a reporter whether Trump was disappointed with Putin's non-appearance at the negotiations, Trump replied, here it says, reporter, there is no Putin in Turkey. Are you disappointed? No, I actually said, why should he go if I don't go? Because I wasn't going to go. I didn't plan to go. I would go, but I didn't plan to go. And I said that I don't think he'll go if I don't go. and it turned out to be right. But I didn't think Putin would go if I didn't go. That's a lot of goes right there. So yeah, that was Trump's statement today while he was in the UAE. A reporter asked him about that, how he felt about Putin not showing up. So allegedly he's not disappointed. So does that mean that the US is not going to hit Russia with sanctions here? I mean, I guess it really depends on the outcome of these negotiations. If Russia shows progress on trying to end this war, maybe the US and Europe won't act on it. But I mean, there's just been so much moving of the goalposts here. And Putin once again just kind of looking like he's siding with Russia, sending his low-tier delegation, and also Putin not showing up, not showing seriousness about ending this war. You would think the U.S., at this point, considering that Trump's been so frustrated lately, you would think he'd be stating things like, well, if he doesn't show up, we're going to start sanctioning Russia. But we're not really seeing any of that yet. We'll have to wait to see what happens here over the next few days. Now for Max 24, Trump, nothing is going to happen with Russia and Ukraine until Putin and I get together. Trump also said, I know nothing about the Russian delegation in Turkey. I am not disappointed with it. So we know about this information here, but this top statement up here, so he's stating that apparently until he meets with Putin, that this war is not going to end, basically. Nothing major is going to happen. So what's the point of Russia and Ukraine meeting in Turkey, and why did Trump call on Volodymyr Zelensky to go and hold these talks in Turkey if nothing's going to happen unless Trump and Putin get together? I mean, why is it up to Trump at the end of the day? Why is pressure not being put from the U.S. and Europe onto Russia to force Vladimir Putin to go over there? Or at least, if this delegation does show up, why are they not forced to come to some sort of agreement, or at least pressured to do so? It's pretty crazy, the news coming out today, and a lot of the flip-flopping going on. Also from EMSC, they're stating here there was an earthquake in Turkey today, which I also thought was kind of interesting. Yeah, there was like a 5.1 that hit like right in the center of Turkey today on the same day that the Ukrainians and Russians are supposed to be meeting. You guys can let me know what you think about that, but I thought that was interesting, the timing. There's an earthquake ongoing there at the same time while Russia and Ukraine, who have been at war here for the last 3 years. Is that possibly, a major sign from somebody much higher than us that, there needs to be a push to end this war? You guys can let me know what you think about that, but I thought that was interesting today. Just wanted to throw that in there. Now for Max 24. The Kremlin is not afraid of further sanctions. Putin believes that the potential domestic problems associated with the opportunity to take a photo with Trump and Zelensky are much higher than the possible damage that Trump's anger could cause, according to CNN sources. Yeah, so CNN writing today that, allegedly Putin's not even afraid of sanctions. That's probably why they're doing this, okay? That's why Putin's not going over there. That's why they're sending a low-tier delegation. I mean, they're clearly doing that on purpose to mock the West, to mock the U.S. on whether Zelensky has the cards, whether Trump has the cards. I mean, clearly it seems like in some ways Russia has all the cards, especially if Trump's coming out today and stating that he's not even really disappointed with Putin for not showing up. I mean, Trump has been coming out so much recently just demanding an end to this war. Now that we're at a point where they could potentially end this war if Zelensky and Putin meet, now Trump's just saying he's not disappointed. So very interesting, the information today. Now from NOAA Reports, Putin's economic envoy, Kirill Dmitriev, claims Trump, J.D. Vance, Steve Witkoff, Marco Rubio, and other allies just made the impossible possible. If talks aren't derailed, this could be a historic step towards peace. But this is rhetoric to distract from the real issue. Putin refused to meet Zelensky, sent low-level officials instead. Russia insists on the outdated 2022 Istanbul terms, and still refused a 30-day ceasefire. Meanwhile, it's building up forces for another offensive. So well said by NOAA Reports. That's very true, everything they're stating there. But yeah, apparently Putin's economic envoy here, Kirill Dmitriev, just stating that maybe there is a possible chance that peace can be achieved. I mean, you guys let me know what you think down in the comments. Do you think we're going to get anywhere closer to peace, even just the slightest bit? Or is this talks over here just going to completely fall flat on everybody's face and it's going to go nowhere, okay? Now from Max 24 again, European diplomats accuse Kremlin of sabotaging peace process. According to Bloomberg, Polish foreign minister said that the arrival of low-level delegation to Turkey is an attempt to buy time. German foreign minister said that the only empty chair in Russia's Ukraine is ready for negotiations, but Russia wants to continue the war. Okay, so lots of European officials coming out and stating that Russia's just playing games here. At the end of the day, they want this war to continue. Here's a report from Bloomberg. Europe slams Putin on Ukraine talks as Trump dangles Turkey trip. All right, so so pretty insane information today here, guys. We're going to move on to another update from Jay in Kiev. Russian market sells off 2% upon news that Putin is sending a delegation of low-level flunkies to Istanbul. Yeah, so apparently the Russian stock market took a little bit of a dive today as well, possibly indicating that maybe Russian companies are worried that they're going to be slammed with sanctions here very soon because Putin making the decision to send low-level officials over to meet with these talks with Ukraine and Turkey. And maybe could we see sanctions coming down onto the Russian economy soon? Could be possible, but I don't know. Right now, there's just so much moving of the goalposts, so much delaying on both sides, whether it's Russia or with the Europeans and the U.S. I mean, it just really seems like all around the board, there's just no seriousness to end this war, and the only people that really seem serious at the end of the day is really just Ukraine, if you think about it. So pretty crazy. Now for Knoll reports, Russia is quietly amassing forces near the front for a new offensive aimed at seizing more territory, CNN reports. U.S. officials say Putin still seeks gains in eastern Ukraine, possibly even near Kiev, despite U.S. calls for a 30-day ceasefire. Here's that report today from CNN. Russia amassing forces for a new Ukraine offensive, U.S. officials say. So even the U.S. got some information that the Russians are preparing another offensive, and they're already starting to launch this thing, according to Zelensky today. We've been reporting this over the last couple days that the Russians were preparing another massive offensive to attack the Ukrainians. And again, more signs here that Russia's not serious about ending this war, guys. It's just continuing with the information showing that Russia's not serious and they want more war. Now for Max 24 again, Putin will try to take any land he can get, right up to the outskirts of Kiev, according to a U.S. official on a Russia's summer offensive. Okay, so apparently even a U.S. official stating that Putin's going to try to get whatever land he can, even right up next to Kiev. This is probably part of that report from CNN, and that's something we expect. You know, Russia does want to take over Ukraine. Now from World Source News 24/7, breaking Russian forces capture the settlements of Novo Oleksandrivka and Torsk in eastern Ukraine. Okay, these were reports actually coming out yesterday that the Russians reportedly were taking over some smaller settlements in eastern Ukraine. So this is not good news. Okay, this is a sign here that Russia is starting to launch some more attacks. I think we're going to start seeing increases in Russian military equipment that's being destroyed again, as lately we haven't really been seeing that for probably the last week or two. But not good news, okay? On top of Russia launching this offensive, they are now starting to take over a few settlements already, again, in eastern Ukraine. Now for Max 24, the morning the consequences of a Russian UAV strike on civilian infrastructure were eliminated in the Sumy region, So, yeah, we did have drones going into Ukraine last night. We'll go ahead and let this roll a little bit. I think there was well over 100 drones attacking into Ukraine, and up in the Sumy region, just over the border from the Kursk region of Russia, we had another UAV strike here. Looks like we had civilian infrastructure being hit, catching on fire, and we have these Ukrainian firefighters showing up to try to put out the blaze. Okay, so definitely some damage reported today inside of Ukraine. Now for Max 24, again, Ukrainian intelligence will warn about possible strikes by Russian Oreshnik, according to Kirill Budanov. He's the head of the GUR, their intelligence directorate in Ukraine. There were no statements from the GUR. Calm down. When something happens, we always warn. Okay, so we've been talking about a potential Oreshnik strike onto Ukraine again very soon. So apparently this is a statement coming out from Budanov today that he's saying that they will warn whenever there's a potential risk of a strike from an Oreshnik missile. This is an intermediate range ballistic missile with pretty extreme power that the Russians fired into Dnipro just a few months back, and we've been hearing lots of warnings that Russia may do this again very soon, maybe even with several. Now for Mosin Technical, the EU is on track to send Ukraine more than 1.35 million artillery shells this year, per Ukraine's Ministry of Foreign Affairs. The EU is supplying roughly 3,700 shells to Ukraine a day and aims to increase that number with the accelerated integration of the Ukrainian and European defense industries. So since we're talking so much about artillery shells going over to Ukraine, if you guys remember, I gave you a report yesterday that France is preparing to send all their Caesar self-propelled howitzers over to Ukraine. Anything that's produced in France right now is going directly over to Ukraine. That's because Ukraine has so many artillery shells. So, just imagine if Ukraine can continuously keep firing artillery shells, that's going to put major suppression on the Russian troops. And I think that's what France is trying to help out with right now, is helping Ukraine out with these artillery guns that they can use to help better control the front line. Now for Knoll reports, the UK and Germany are teaming up to develop a long-range strike weapon with a range of over 2,000 kilometers. Also on the table, joint torpedo procurement and German purchase of British military brigades. Okay, here's a report today on Reuters, UK and Germany to jointly develop 2,000 kilometer range strike weapon. Now, we don't know what kind of weapon it is. I'm not sure if it's going to be a missile or what it is, but 2,000 kilometer range is pretty crazy. And imagine if they were to send this over to Ukraine. Maybe that's the plan here. They're probably going to start sending these over to Ukraine, considering that it has 2,000 kilometer range. So we could be hearing about that more soon. Not too many details on that yet, but allegedly the UK and Germany are jointly working on that right now. Now for military news UA, first photos of a Ukrainian naval drone equipped with American air-to-air missiles, AIM-9 Sidewinders. Okay, this is the Magura V7. Okay, this is the newest model of the Magura, similar to the Magura V5 naval drone. That's kind of like a boat, a surface drone that they use, and you can see these Sidewinder missiles that are attached to this. And we had reports that, I think it was an Su-30, there was like 2 of them that were reportedly shot down over the Black Sea in the last couple weeks. This is the drone that was used to shoot those things down. Okay, so looks like Ukraine has unveiled that today. These are some pictures coming out showing this this drone being unveiled today. So kind of cool to see this. You guys can take a look at a couple of these here. We can see the Sidewinder missiles there on the side of that drone. Okay, so very cool to see that. More drones being created in the Ukrainian defense industry. Now from Spravdy, Stratcom Center, 5 days ago, Ukraine's allies warned of devastating consequences if Russian dictator refused a ceasefire within 24 hours. In response, the Kremlin tried to stall and divide by floating a proposal Putin would come to Istanbul for talks on May 15th. It's now May 15th. The dictator is nowhere to be seen. Instead, Moscow has dispatched low-level functionaries with no authority and no relevance, not even the foreign minister. At the same time, Russia continues its war of terror. Last night alone, 110 Shahed drones targeted Ukrainian cities and regions, including Sumy, Dnipro, Poltava, Kiev, and Ivano-Frankivsk. Ukraine's air defense shot down 62. So yeah, on top of these talks going on inside of Turkey and Putin not even showing up over there, we've got a lot of these drones entering into Ukraine, 62 being shot down out of 110. So that is good though. Right around half or more shot down is typically what we see every day. Some of them probably being suppressed by electronic warfare as well. So there's your update on the amount of drones going into Ukraine. In our final update of the day from the Kyiv Independent, these are the indicative estimates of Russia's combat losses as of May 15th, according to the Armed Forces of Ukraine. In our final update of the day, Russia's losses as of May 15th, 1,220 troops, 13 AFVs, 165 vehicles and fuel tanks, 8 tanks, 45 artillery systems, 140 UAVs, 2 MLRS, 1 helicopter, 1 anti-aircraft warfare system, and 8 special equipment. Okay, so definitely a lot more being destroyed that we're seeing here. Lots of numbers here on this side. We have a helicopter being destroyed allegedly as well on the Russian side. But yeah, overall, still kind of similar numbers that we have seen recently. Vehicles and fuel tanks up, numbers up a little bit higher than usual. But 1,200 troops is right about what we've seen on average. So across the board, for the most part, pretty standard numbers that we've seen here that have been pretty stable for the last probably 2 weeks or so. So yeah, guys, there's your amount of Russian losses here in equipment over the last 24 hours. And I want to thank you guys again very much for being here for today's update. Again, just thank you so much for supporting me throughout the last year and a half of being here on YouTube. And I want to thank you guys so much for tuning in. If you got something out of this update, please smash that like button. Also, if you enjoy my content, please consider subscribing down below. Hit the notification bell. That way YouTube can notify you. And with that, hope you all have a great day. Everybody take care and God bless. And we'll see you in the next one.